In today's video, I'm going to show you everything you need to know how to change the oil on today's modern vehicles, and this video is sponsored by Quaker State, so stay tuned for that. So I'm going to walk you through the steps of changing oil, some of the safety tips, how to choose the proper oil. So I'm going to walk you through an oil change to show you exactly everything you need to do on your vehicle so you can have the confidence to do it yourself. We're also going to talk a little bit about the type of oils that you're going to need to put in the vehicle and resetting maintenance and service lights. So on today's modern car, the engine is more complex than ever, and that's why you need to use a quality oil such as Quaker State Ultimate Durability Full Synthetic Motor Oil. Before we get started with the oil change, we're going to talk about the proper oil to use, some of the specs that you'll find on the back of a bottle here. We're going to debunk a few myths. So one of the most important factors of changing your own engine oil is to make sure that you're using the right viscosity, or what's referred to as the weight of the oil, for the vehicle that you're working on, or if you're paying a shop to do it for you, you want to make sure that they're using the proper weight oil. One of the quickest and easiest ways is to check your oil cap. It's usually written right on there. And as you can see, it takes 5W30 and it has the letters API. That is a test that's run on engine oils and are standard, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. Another common place is it could be written on the dipstick itself. On this one it was not, but on some vehicles it's written on the dipstick. So you want to purchase an oil that meets or exceeds those standards. Now the best place to find that information is the owner's manual on your vehicle. You're just going to go to the index, you're going to look up either maintenance or you're going to look up engine oil itself, and then it will tell you what pages to go. Here you'll find everything you need to know, what type of oil you need to use, how to check the engine oil, and the quantity of the engine oil. So a large majority of engines being produced today in automobiles are being produced with turbochargers, and that means they have to hold up to higher standards. So full synthetic oils and full durability oils are needed. As you saw on the oil cap, there was the logo API and then the letters SL. So API is American Petroleum Institute, and they set standard tests for petroleum-based fluids. And the letter SL is a minimum standard that it has to pass. That's a type of test that is run. And you can find that information on the back of the bottle. And these tests basically mean that these engine oils can lubricate, clean, remove heat, and help keep the engine sealed. And they do this at different temperatures, between high and low temperatures. And that's what the weight or viscosity is all about. And as you can see on this cutaway engine, there's lots of small moving parts. And each of these parts are designed with very specific standards or tolerances. And if you use the wrong viscosity or how thick the oil is, the oil will not flow to these parts and cause extreme engine wear or engine performance issues. An example of that is variable valve timing. So the valve timing is controlled with engine oil pressure, and it controls the cam location at certain driving conditions. And that's at the top of the engine. If the oil is not able to flow to the top of the engine and operate these cam adjusters, the engine will not be in time. The only other thing you need to know about the weight or viscosity of the engine oil is that they've engineered your engine to operate at certain temperatures, and they want that viscosity to stay consistently. So that's what the 5W30 or 0W20. What that means is they're keeping the same thickness or near the same thickness at different operating temperatures, cold or hot, that your engine is designed to run at. So you don't want it too thick at a certain temperature or too thin at a certain temperature. You want to try to keep a kind of a medium happiness, and that makes the engine run and perform the best. So quality motor oils such as Quaker State have the ability to also clean the engine at the same time, which prevents the oil from breaking down as fast and producing contaminants that stick to the back of the valves or the piston rings. And these are some of those standard tests that I was speaking of, like the SL rating. So there's also a myth out there that if you're using standard oils that you should not switch to full synthetic, that it causes leaks and it doesn't work as well on older engines, which happens to be not true. So that was true back in the day when synthetics first came out. But nowadays, these synthetic oils are formulated to prevent seals from leaking, to protect engine wear, and they're also able to keep that viscosity or the thickness of the oil very consistent, which means that it works very well in just about every engine out there. The only exception to that rule would be super high mileage vehicles. that are already leaking internally with blow-by pressure, or seals are leaking, and then you would want to use a high mileage engine oil that's specifically designed to help seal those out. Now we're going to get started changing the oil. You're going to need a few things. You need a floor jack, jack stands, and you're going to need a container to catch the oil, and also so you can recycle the oil when you're done. So I'm going to do this oil change exactly how a DIYer would do this at home. We're going to use the floor jack and jack stands and jack the vehicle up. So I'm jacking this vehicle up from the frame right here in the very back. So I'm rolling the jack back there. I want to make sure you're not jacking up on any engine compartment or component such as oil pans or anything. So I'm using the frame right back here. I'm jacking the vehicle up, and once I get the vehicle up high enough, I'll put the jack stand over here on the jack points right here. So all vehicles have jack points where you lift the vehicle. This is where you want to install your jack stand. And depending on what type of vehicle you're working on, you may be able to jack it up from the center of the vehicle or the center of the frame and install 2 jack stands at the same time, or you may have to do one side at a time. On this vehicle, I had to do one side at a time, so I jacked up to the left, then I went over to the right side, jacked it up, and put 2 jack stands under it. Before I crawl underneath the vehicle, I also like to give the vehicle a little shake just to see how sturdy it is. This vehicle is not moving at all, so I'm confident to crawl underneath it. Most modern vehicles have some type of shields underneath that may need to be removed. This one is held on with just bolts around the perimeter. I'm just going to pull these bolts out and drop this shield down. If you have power tools make these type of jobs a lot faster. Now that we got the lower shield removed, I'm going to prep my bucket here. So I'm going to open it up, and also it has a vent here. And you want to take that vent off so when you drain the oil in there, it flows in there and it doesn't overflow. Now you want to locate the engine oil drain plug. On this one here is right here in the back. It was a 15 millimeter. Usually I carry a couple wrenches under here because once you're crawled under here, you want to make sure you have the right size. So you want to crack this free and then get this draining. Once you get it loose, you want to make sure that your drain bucket is lined up with the drain plug here. So when you pull it out, it dumps right into the drain bucket. So I captured this oil in this drain bucket here, and I'm able to call up my local recycle center and take it to the nearest one to recycle the engine oil. While the engine oil is draining, I like to go ahead and loosen up the oil filter and swap that out. If you're lucky, it's hand tight and you can just spin it off. If you're not lucky, you're going to need tools. Common tools for that are oil filter pliers, or these cup style adapters that fit over the top of the oil filter, and you can put a ratchet on the end of it and screw it off. In my case, I just used the pliers here. Luckily it wasn't over tight or too tight. Just a couple turns with the pliers and I was able to spin it off by hand. You also want to make sure when you're spinning this off that your oil bucket is lined up underneath this as well, because they drain out a little bit of oil. Before you install the new oil filter, it's a good idea to take a little bit of fresh oil and put it on the seal of the new oil filter. This helps it seal really well, but also helps you get it off on your next oil change. Before you put it on, you check the old oil filter to make sure that the old seal is still there and it's not stuck to the housing up here. If you double gasket that, it's a for sure leak, so you want to make sure that the gasket is not stuck on here. Now you're ready to go ahead and spin on your new filter. You're going to do that by hand. Now you can tighten it up by hand. So I tighten it up using just my wrist only until it's good and snug. It doesn't have to be super tight, just nice and snug. Before you reinstall the drain plug, you want to check the condition of the seal on it. This one's a rubber O-ring that's in really good condition. Most drain plugs have a sealing washer of some sort, and it do require changing out. So once you determine that it's in good enough shape, you can go ahead and reinstall this and tighten the drain plug up. If it has a drain washer, you want to tighten it up till you feel it slightly crushed down, but not so tight where it pulls the threads out of the oil pan. Now you can clean up any oil spills or messes that you made. And on some vehicles, there's Zerk fittings that require lubricating on the suspension parts. This vehicle is all sealed up and doesn't have those, but you want to look around to see if those need to be lubricated. You also want to check the brakes. You want to make sure that the pad linings are thick and the rotors are in good condition. If any of those have issues, change those out. You also want to check your tire pressure on all your tires and then check your tire wear. This is the perfect time to check that, especially since it's up in the air. And then you might want to give the vehicle a good shakedown, make sure there's no play or anything in the suspension. You want to check your belts, check and top off any fluids. And after you've done all that, then you can go ahead and reinstall that shield that was underneath. And we're also, if you have any leaves built up here in the cowling, you want to clean that out. There's lots of vents and stuff where water drains, and these will plug them up, and that causes rust inside of fenders and causes problems with your HVAC system. So you want to clean all this out right here. Now we're ready to fill the vehicle up with some Quaker State Ultimate Durability Full Synthetic Motor Oil. You definitely want to use a funnel, and if you don't know exactly how much oil is needed, what I like to do is put in about 3.5 to 4 quarts. Without starting the vehicle, I'll check the dipstick here. Most cars hold between 4 and 5 quarts on the, if it's a 4-cylinder. 6 cylinders go up to between 5 and 6 quarts, and V8s can go up pretty high. So you don't want to overfill it. So it's a lot easier if you underfill it and then slightly add more until you get to the proper level versus trying to drain some oil back out. It's a lot harder. The goal is to make sure you have enough that's measuring on the stick, but it's not over full. I also wanted to mention that you want to check the engine oil with that vehicle back on the ground level. So if I was to check it with it at an angle like this, it might read off. So I'm going to lower this vehicle back down. Now that I know that engine oil is in the ballpark, it's on the stick here, I'm going to start the vehicle, and that's going to pump the oil into the oil filter, and then I'm going to let it sit for a couple minutes, and then I'm going to recheck the oil level. And usually if I do it this way, it's engine oil is slightly low, and I just add a little bit and top it off. And that way I don't overfill it and have to rejack the vehicle up, drain the oil back out. It's a lot easier this way. So I just make sure it's on the hash mark right here on the dipstick. Now on most vehicles, they have some type of warning indicator telling you when to change the oil or maintenance light, and they all are different and they all require resetting. I'm resetting it on this one here, going through the steering wheel to go through the functions to select the oil life and reset that. On whatever vehicle you're working on, the best way to find out how to do that is to look it up in your service manual or your owner's manual. So right now, AutoZone is running a special on Quaker State Motor Oil. I will leave links for it down in the description of the video, or you can head over to your local AutoZone and pick up Quaker State Oil on sale until the end of the year. I'm Brian Esser from How To Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, encourage you to subscribe, invite you to head over to the howtoautomotive.com website for more valuable videos like this, and be sure to pick up some Quaker State Motor Oil. Thank you for watching.